always knew something was off. Not because someone told me. Not because I found a message by accident or saw a name flash across the screen I wasn't supposed to see. I knew because I'm a Scorpio. And Scorpio women don't miss things. We feel them long before we can prove them. We sense the shift in the atmosphere before anyone else in the room even notices the temperature has changed. That's not something I learned. That's something I was born with. And for most of my life, I thought it was a gift. A kind of private radar that kept me one step ahead. I trusted it. I relied on it. And when it went off in October, quietly, almost gently, like a low vibration under everything, I listened. His name was Marcus. We had been together for 3 years when everything fell apart. 3 years of building something I believed in completely. Not naively, I want to be clear about that. I am not a woman who loves with her eyes closed. I am a woman who loves with her eyes wide open, who sees every flaw and chooses anyway, who commits not out of desperation, but out of genuine, deliberate choice. I chose Marcus. I chose him every single day for 3 years. And I believed, without reservation, that he was choosing me back. He was charming in a way that wasn't loud. That was what drew me to him first. Some men perform their charm. They wear it like a costume. They deploy it consciously. They know exactly what they're doing when they smile at you. Marcus wasn't like that. His was quieter. He laughed easily. He remembered small things. The coffee order I changed 3 times before I settled on it. The name of the street I grew up on. The specific way I liked the blinds in the morning. Tilted just enough to let in light without glare. He paid attention. And attention is everything to a Scorpio woman. Because we pay it so completely ourselves that when someone gives it back, it feels like recognition. Like being truly seen. We moved in together after 18 months. A second-floor apartment on the east side of the city, with windows that face the park and a kitchen too small for 2 people to cook in at the same time. We made it work. We made all of it work. The cramped mornings and the mismatched schedules and the particular negotiation of 2 lives merging into a shared one. I thought we were good at it. I thought we were better at it than most. October came, and with it, our anniversary, 3 years. He took me back to the Italian restaurant on the corner of 5th and Marchetti, the same place we had our first date. The same dim lighting and half-melted candles. The same waiter who may or may not have remembered us but smiled as if he did. I wore a black dress. Marcus told me I looked beautiful. And he reached across the table and held my hand, and I smiled at him. And I meant the smile. And underneath the smile, underneath the warmth of the wine and the candlelight and 3 years of accumulated love, something in me went very, very quiet. Not alarm. Not panic. Something subtler than that. More like a tuning fork struck once and then left to vibrate alone in a silent room. Just a single note, low and clear, barely there. And the note said, "Something is wrong." I didn't say anything that night. I want you to understand this part, because I think it's the part people get wrong about Scorpio women. They expect us to react immediately, to confront, to explode. And some of us do sometimes when the emotion is big enough and fast enough that it bypasses the calculating part of us. But when the feeling is quiet, when it comes as a vibration rather than a shout, we don't react. We absorb, we observe. We file it away carefully and we wait, because we know that patience is a form of power. And we know that moving too soon means showing your hand before you know what game you're playing. So, I held his hand across that anniversary table. And I smiled, and I put the note somewhere inside me where I could hear it clearly. And I did not let him see that I heard anything at all. The next few weeks. I paid attention. Not in the way that looks like suspicion. I didn't follow him or check his location or call him 6 times in an afternoon. I simply watched. The way a scientist observes a controlled experiment, cataloging data without yet drawing conclusions. I watched the way he held his phone. For 3 years it had sat face up on tables, on counters, on the nightstand beside us. Sometime in late September, it started landing face down. A small thing. Easy to rationalize. But I cataloged it. I watched his schedule. Marcus had never been a morning person. In 3 years, I had never once seen him voluntarily wake before 8 on a weekday and 9 on a weekend. In October, he started going to the gym at 7 in the morning. Not every day, 3 times a week, consistently, with a new consistency that had no precedent. He said he wanted to get back in shape. I said that was great. I cataloged it. I listened to him on the phone. Not eavesdropping, just the natural auditory awareness of sharing a space with someone. I had learned the rhythms of his phone calls over 3 years. His work voice, lower and more measured. His voice with his college friends, louder and faster, full of shorthand and old references. His voice with his mother, careful and slightly formal in the way adult children sometimes get with parents they love but don't quite know how to talk to anymore. In October, a new rhythm appeared, lighter, almost performative in its lightness. A laugh that was too easy, too bright, like someone who was aware of being listened to and wanted to seem casual. I heard it twice before I fully registered what it was. I cataloged it. And then there was the scheduling. This was the detail that, looking back, told me the most. He started asking about my plans. Not in the way of someone who wants to make plans with you. Not what are you doing Saturday? Want to go to the market? Not that. In the way of someone napping your absence. Casual questions about whether I was meeting friends, whether my Thursday work event was confirmed, whether I was going to my mother's that weekend. I answered each time without reaction, watching the questions accumulate into a pattern one could not yet name but absolutely recognized. Something was being hidden from me. I didn't yet know what. But I knew it with the particular certainty that lives in the body before it lives in the mind. The certainty that doesn't need evidence because it already is the evidence. And I was going to find out what it was on my terms in my time. When I was ready, the name came on a Tuesday. I was in the kitchen making tea when his phone buzzed on the counter. He was in the shower. The notification appeared before the screen locked. Just a fragment, a few words visible above the preview cutoff. I didn't pick up the phone. I didn't need to. The name was there. Danielle. One word. And the sentence fragment around it was nothing remarkable. Something ordinary. Conversational. The kind of message that by itself means nothing. But the name. Danielle. In 3 years, Marcus had never mentioned a Danielle. Not once. Not in any story about work, any anecdote about the past, any mention of a mutual friend or a neighbor or a colleague. Danielle was a name that existed nowhere in the map of his life as I knew it. I finished making my tea. I went to the living room. I sat down. And I turned the name over in my mind like a stone. I'd found and wasn't ready to put down yet. I thought about it the way you think about a word. You don't recognize in a sentence, not with alarm, but with careful, deliberate attention. Who is Danielle? Where does she fit? Why has this name never appeared in 3 years of conversations, introductions, stories, passing mentions? I went back through my memory of the past few months and searched it the way you search a document for a keyword. Nothing. She existed nowhere in the version of Marcus's life he had shared with me, which meant she existed in the version he hadn't. I sat with that for a long time before I did anything about it. I think this is worth explaining. The sitting with it. Because I know how it sounds from the outside. I know that people, when they imagine this moment, imagine a woman who should either confront immediately or dismiss the feeling and trust her partner. The binary that gets offered to women in these situations is always the same. Either you're reactive or you're trusting. Either you make a scene or you let it go. And what I did was neither of those things. And I refused to apologize for that. I sat with it because I needed to understand what I was dealing with before I responded to it. Because responding without understanding is how people end up on the back foot. Because a Scorpio woman does not walk into a confrontation she hasn't already won. Later that night, after he was asleep, I opened my phone and I searched. I'm not going to pretend that was a comfortable thing to do or that I felt good about it. I've always believed in privacy. I'd never gone through a partner's things before, not in any relationship. The version of me that existed before October would have said that going through someone's phone was a line she wouldn't cross. That trust meant trusting. That suspicion wasn't evidence. And I still believe some version of that. But something in me had already shifted, quietly and irrevocably. The moment that name appeared on the screen, and the shift said, "You already know." You're not looking because you're suspicious. You're looking because you need to be certain before you move. I searched her name and the city. A profile appeared. Brunette, mid-30s, worked in marketing for a company in the financial district. A mutual connection with Marcus through someone he had worked with 2 jobs ago. A link thin enough to be coincidental and specific enough not to be. I looked at everything that was publicly visible. I closed the app. I put my phone down. I lay in the dark next to Marcus and stared at the ceiling for a long time. He was sleeping on his side, facing away from me, his breathing slow and even. I listened to it. I thought about how many nights I had fallen asleep to that sound without question, without the slightest hesitation, feeling safe in the way you feel safe when you believe that what surrounds you is solid. I thought about how quickly solid things can turn out to be hollow once you know where to press. I didn't sleep much that night. But I didn't let myself spiral either. Spiraling is for people who don't have a plan, and I was already quietly starting to form one, and I waited. Not because I wasn't sure. I was sure. The certainty was sitting in the center of my chest, cold and clear and completely still. I waited because I wasn't ready. Because ready for me doesn't mean emotionally ready. It means prepared, positioned, protected. 2 more weeks passed. And during those 2 weeks, Marcus was unusually attentive. He brought me coffee in the mornings without being asked. He suggested we watch movies together on weeknights, which he almost never did. He cooked dinner twice. Actually cooked, not reheated. Not ordered, and set the table and poured wine and was present in a way that, in another context, would have been romantic, and in this context felt like management. Like someone recalibrating. Like someone who had sensed, on some instinctual level, that the ground was less stable than it appeared, and was compensating. I received all of it with complete warmth, and gave nothing away. There was one evening in particular that I think about sometimes. He had made dinner, and we were sitting at the small table by the window, the park outside dark and still, and he was talking about something, a frustrating situation at work, a colleague who hadn't pulled their weight on a project, and I was looking at him and listening and responding in all the right places. And at the same time I was watching him the way you watch a film you've seen before, with a kind of detached, curious attention, noticing the particular way he moved his hands when he was animated about something, noticing the way he looked at me when he laughed, as if checking that his amusement had landed, noticing all the small physical habits of a person I had spent 3 years learning, and understanding for the first time that knowing someone's habits is not the same as knowing them. He reached across the table and covered my hand with his. I turned my hand over and held his fingers, and I thought, I am going to miss this. Not him exactly. Not the person who made the choice he made. But this, the warmth of someone's hand across a dinner table, the specific comfort of a shared evening, the feeling of being in the middle of something that is ongoing and alive. That feeling. I was going to miss it. And then I thought, I deserve someone who will give it to me honestly. And I let go. I have thought about this period a great deal since then. About what it takes to sit across from someone you love or loved, or are in the process of understanding you can no longer love in the same way and give them nothing. No crack, no coolness, no flicker of what you're carrying. Some people would call that cold. I call it necessary. I was not performing normalcy for his benefit. I was performing it for mine, buying myself the time and space to do what I needed to do without interference, without the kind of explosive confrontation that would have put me on the back foot, made me the one who seemed reactive, left me without the clarity I needed to protect myself. I called my sister. I told her I might need her guest room. I didn't explain why. She is the kind of person who says yes first and asks questions when you're ready to answer them, and she said yes, just like I knew she would. I sat in the parking lot of my office building after that call and looked at my phone in my lap for a moment, and something in me loosened very slightly. A single point of safety confirmed. It was enough. I had lunch with a friend who worked as a paralegal. I framed my questions as hypothetical, a friend's situation, a lease with both names on it. what the process would look like if one person needed to leave. She walked me through it over salads, and I took mental notes and thanked her and changed the subject, and she never knew it wasn't hypothetical. I drove home afterward and sat in the car outside our building for 10 minutes, going through what she had said, organizing it, determining what steps I would need to take and in what order. Then I went upstairs and started dinner. I transferred money. Not money that was ours, money that was always mine, savings I'd accumulated before Marcus. That had been sitting in a joint account simply because consolidating finances had seemed like a reasonable step at the time. I moved it to an account in my name only at a different bank. It took 20 minutes online, and I felt my shoulders drop slightly when it was done. Not relief. Exactly. Groundedness. The sensation of having placed one foot on solid ground. I documented what I needed to document. I will not be more specific than that. And every evening I came home and made dinner or asked about his day or watched whatever he put on the television and gave him. Nothing except the version of me he had been given every other day for 3 years. There were moments when it was harder than others. One night he came home in a genuinely good mood, loose and happy in the way he sometimes got after a good day. And he pulled me into the kitchen and tried to dance with me to something on the speaker, and I laughed and let him spin me and felt the weight of everything I was carrying with an intensity that almost broke my composure. Almost. I breathed through it. I kept the laugh on my face until it found its way to being a real laugh, because even then, in that moment, there was something real underneath everything else. There was the person I had loved. And I could hold both things at once, the love and the betrayal and the decision, without letting any of them erase the others. That is, I think, one of the things Scorpio women do that people don't understand. We don't simplify. We don't need someone to be only one thing in order to know what we have to do. We can love someone and leave them. We can grieve something and still walk away from it. The two are not contradictory. Until the Friday. He was making pasta when I got home. Music on the speaker, something light, something that matched his mood, which was good. Openly, genuinely good, in a way that made something contract briefly in my chest before I put it aside. He asked about my day. I set my bag down. I sat at the kitchen table. And I waited until he turned around from the stove. He was smiling when he turned around. I said, "Tell me about Danielle." The smile didn't disappear immediately. It took a fraction of a second, barely perceptible. The kind of delay that only someone watching very closely would catch, and then it was gone. Replaced by something I can only describe as the face of a person watching the floor give way beneath him. He went through 3 expressions in 4 seconds. Confusion first, performed, unconvincing. The eyes widening in a question mark shape that didn't reach any other part of his face. Then something briefer, a dart of denial, his mouth starting to form the shape of a name he was going to tell me he barely knew. And then collapse. Not dramatic. Marcus was never dramatic. Just a quiet, visible giving way. A man who had been holding something heavy deciding he was too tired to hold it anymore. He sat down across from me. Neither of us spoke. For a long time, I did not fill the silence. This is something I learned about myself long before Marcus. That silence is not empty. That sitting in silence with someone is a form of pressure that most people cannot sustain. That if you wait long enough without speaking, the other person will speak for you. And what they say when they finally break will be more honest than anything they'd have said immediately. The silence in that kitchen was one of the most complete silences I have ever sat in. The music was still playing from the speaker. Some song I didn't recognize. Something with a guitar and a tempo that was badly matched to the moment, and neither of us moved to turn it off. He said it wasn't serious. I looked at him and said nothing. He said he didn't know how it happened, which is what people say when they don't want to say they chose it. When they want the comfort of passivity, it happened to me, it unfolded around me. I was a bystander to my own choices. I have thought about this phrase a great deal in the months since. I don't know how it happened. I think it is one of the most dishonest sentences available to a person in this situation. And I think the dishonesty isn't malicious so much as it is self-protective. Because to say I chose this is a much harder sentence to live in. And most people will take the easier sentence if it's available. I said nothing. He said he was sorry. And I believed him. Not because it changed anything, but because I'm good at reading people and I could see that the sorry was real, layered, and complicated. Maybe sorry for being caught. Maybe sorry for what he'd done. Maybe sorry for something he couldn't quite articulate. The way people are sorry sometimes for who they turned out to be in a situation they hadn't expected to be in. I have no interest in denying people their genuine remorse. It just doesn't factor into what I need to do. I said, I know about the emails. I know how long it's been. I need you to understand something. I'm not angry. I'm done. He looked at me as if I had said something in a language he needed a moment to translate. I got up. The pasta was still boiling. I walked to the stove and turned it off. He started to cry. I hadn't expected that. Marcus was not someone who cried easily. In 3 years, I had seen it once. When his grandmother died, and even then it was brief and quickly contained. Seeing it now, in the kitchen, over a pot of pasta and everything that had brought us to this moment, made something in me ache in a way that had nothing to do with changing my mind, and everything to do with the fact that grief doesn't wait for permission. You can be completely certain of a decision and still feel the weight of what it costs. I let myself feel that weight. I didn't look away from it. And I didn't change my mind. I stood and let him cry for a moment. Then I said, I'm going to stay with my sister. I've already spoken to someone about the lease. I'll arrange a time to collect my things, and I expect us both to be civil about the process because I intend to be. He said we could talk about it, work through it. He said he loved me. He said it more than once, as if repetition might make it land differently. I looked at him for a long time. The way you look at someone when you're not angry and you're not performing composure and you're just clear. The way you look at someone when you've already finished something they don't know is finished. Yet, I said, I think you love me. I don't think you loved me the way I deserve to be loved. And I think some part of you has known that for longer than I have. He didn't say anything to that. I picked up the bag I had packed that morning, quietly, methodically, while he was in the shower. The same way I had done everything else for the past 2 weeks, and I walked to the door. And I left out my sister was awake when I got there. She opened the door and looked at my face and didn't ask anything, just stepped back to let me in and put the kettle on. I sat at her kitchen table and held the mug she handed me and stared at the steam rising from it for a long time without speaking. And then I cried, not in the way people cry when they're falling apart. In the way people cry when something is over and the body needs to acknowledge it. Slow, steady, thorough. The kind of crying that doesn't feel like weakness because it isn't. It's just the physical reality of loss moving through you, finding its way out. I cried for the relationship, for the 3 years that were real, even though the end of them was a lie. For the future I had been constructing in my imagination, the specific, detailed future that lives in the minds of people who love deeply. The one that has a house in it and a kitchen big enough for 2 people to cook in and a life that keeps going and going. I grieved that future. I gave myself permission to grieve it fully, and then, eventually, I slept. I slept better that first night at my sister's apartment than I had slept in months. Not because the pain was gone, it wasn't, but because I was no longer lying next to a lie. Because the low, constant vibration I had been carrying since October, the one I had been cataloging and analyzing and waiting on, was finally still. There is a particular exhaustion that comes from knowing something and not being able to say that you know it. A tax that secrecy levies on the body. I hadn't realized how much I was paying until the payment stopped. The weeks that followed were orderly. I had made sure of that. We divided things without fighting. He was cooperative in the particular way of someone who knows they have no ground to stand on and is grateful not to be made to stand on it anyway. We communicated by text, mostly brief and factual, nothing left open-ended. I collected my things on a Wednesday afternoon when I knew he had work. The apartment looked smaller without my things in it, and I stood in the doorway for a moment before I left for the last time, not out of nostalgia, but out of something more like acknowledgement. This happened here. It is over now. The lease ended 2 months later, and we both moved on. I want to say something now, not about Marcus. Not about what he did, but about the experience of being a Scorpio. Woman moving through a betrayal. Because I know there are women listening to this who have felt what I described in those early weeks. That quiet, persistent certainty. That sense of something being wrong that you cannot yet prove and that the people around you might call paranoia if you voiced it. That specific loneliness of knowing and not knowing simultaneously. I want to tell you, trust it. Not because the feeling is always right, it isn't always. Not because suspicion is a virtue. It isn't. But because you are the most reliable expert on your own experience. You know the texture of your relationship. You know what normal feels like in it. You know when something has shifted. Because you have been paying attention every single day. With the full depth of attention that Scorpio women bring to everything they love. That attention is not a flaw. It is not obsession. It is care. And what care sees, it sees accurately. You are also allowed to take your time. There is no rule that says you must confront immediately. There is no prize for reacting before you're ready. The world will tell you that silence is complicity, that staying quiet means you're okay with something. But if you don't explode, you don't care. Ignore that. You are allowed to be strategic about your own life. You are allowed to protect yourself before you dismantle anything. You are allowed to leave cleanly, on your own terms, with your dignity fully intact. That is not coldness. That is self-respect dressed as composure. And there is a profound difference. Scorpio women love with everything. Every layer, every depth, every quiet and furious part of us. We are not half in. We are never half in. And because we love that completely, betrayal doesn't just hurt us, it changes us. Not destroys. Changes. Recalibrates. Makes us more precise about what we will and won't accept. More honest with ourselves about what we actually need, not what we've been told we should be satisfied with. I am not the same woman I was at that anniversary dinner in October. I am more certain. More myself. More unwilling to override what I feel in order to preserve what I have. I am harder to deceive, not because I am more suspicious, but because I have less tolerance for convincing myself that something that feels wrong is somehow right. The door that closed inside me the night I found the emails. It did not close off love. I am still fully capable of love. I am still the kind of woman who commits completely, who pays full attention, who will build a life alongside someone. I mean, every brick of it. What closed was my tolerance for being the only one doing that. And if there is anything I would want someone to take from this story, it is that you do not have to burn anything down. You do not have to perform your pain for it to be valid. You do not have to be undone by someone else's choice. You can feel everything you feel, fully and honestly, and still move through it with your spine straight and your plans made and your bag already packed. You can leave the pasta on the stove and turn it off on your way out, and you can walk through that door like someone who always knew her own worth, even in the moments when someone else forgot it. That is what it means to be a Scorpio woman, and that is what it means to be done.